The training hall didn't have a word for mercy. It was a wide, circular arena layered in adaptive material that shifted density depending on impact. Around it, cadets from 12 species stood in elevated rings, watching, waiting, calculating. No one spoke during live drills. Not because it was forbidden, because it was unnecessary. Pain was part of the curriculum. Mara learned that in her first week. By her third month, she stopped reacting to it. Engage. The command came flat, emotionless. Her opponent moved first, Virexian. Taller, longer reach, double-jointed limbs that allowed unnatural angles. Fast. Too fast for most first response counters. Mara didn't rush. She stepped in, half a beat late on purpose. Observers often misunderstood that. They thought she hesitated. She didn't. She was measuring. The first strike came low, then snapped upward. She blocked. Almost. The impact twisted her arm at a bad angle. There was a sound. Not loud, not dramatic, just wrong. A small shift. A failure in alignment. Mara stepped back. Not quickly. Carefully. Up in the observation tier, a few cadets leaned forward. Injury, one of them muttered. Radius or ulna, another guessed. Human bone density insufficient for that torque. Match will be stopped. It wasn't, because Mara didn't signal. She rolled her shoulder once, tested rotation. Limited, not gone. Pain registered. Sharp, immediate, clean. Good. Clean pain meant predictable. Predictable meant usable. Across from her, the Virexian adjusted stance. It had seen the shift. Injury detection was instinctive. It moved in again, faster this time. To end it. Mara didn't raise her arm. That was the first change. The second came half a second later. She stepped into the attack instead of away. The strike that should have landed clean instead glanced across her shoulder as she closed distance. Not a block. Something else. A denial of space. Her injured arm stayed close to her body, unmoving, unused. From above, she's compensating. No, she's losing structure. Why continue? On the arena floor, Mara didn't think in words. Not really, her brain had already done the important part. It had marked the arm as unreliable, not gone, just inefficient. So it stopped offering it as a primary option. The next movement was different, smaller, tighter, efficient. She shifted her weight lower, used her hips instead of reach, angles instead of extension. Her left side became passive, guarded, minimal. Her right side adapted, faster, more precise. Another exchange, then another. The Virexian hesitated, just slightly, because this wasn't standard degradation. Injured opponents slowed. They made mistakes. They became predictable. Mara became unfamiliar. Up in the medical observation booth, Instructor Halvin paused the feed overlay. Injury confirmed, his assistant said. Human subject Mara. Structural compromise in forearm. Recommending termination of session. Halvin didn't respond immediately. He watched her instead. She pivoted. Not fully, just enough. Redirected force through her shoulder instead of her arm. Took a hit she shouldn't have taken, and reduced it into something survivable. That's not trained, the assistant added. No, Halvin said quietly. It isn't. Down below, Mara exhaled slowly, not to calm herself, to time the next movement. The pain was still there, constant, sharp, but it had already been sorted, filed, placed somewhere it wouldn't interfere. Another attack came, faster, more aggressive. The Virexian was adapting now, trying to break through whatever this new pattern was. Mara adjusted again, not dramatically. Just enough. A step shorter. A turn earlier. A shift in balance that saved her from overusing the injured arm. It wasn't heroic. It wasn't even a decision. It was a workaround. In the observation booth, Halvin straightened slightly. Do not stop the match, he said. The assistant blinked. But I want to see how far this goes. Back in the arena, Mara moved again. Different, still changing, still solving. And for the first time since the injury, she wasn't reacting anymore. She was building something new. The Virexian attacked again. But this time, there was hesitation. Not visible to most. Not measurable by standard reaction metrics. But it was there. Because Mara no longer behaved like a damaged opponent. She behaved like a changing system. The strike came high, then split mid-motion. One limb fainting, the other committing. A sequence designed to overwhelm prediction models. It had worked on every species in the last 3 rotations. Mara didn't try to predict it. That was the difference. She stepped into the uncertainty. From above, confusion rippled through the observers. She's not reading the attack. She can't. Her response timing is off. No, look, she's not waiting for resolution. They were right, she wasn't. The human brain didn't always solve problems by finding the correct answer. Sometimes, it removed the need for one. Mara shifted forward before the strike fully formed. Not guessing, not gambling. Just refusing to let the situation stabilize into something dangerous. The Virexian's limbs adjusted mid-air, but too late. The spacing was wrong now, the angle broken. Contact, but not where it was supposed to be. Mara took the hit across her upper back instead of her arm. The impact forced her down to one knee. Gasps echoed across the upper tiers. Injury compounding. She's destabilizing. End the match. Halvin didn't move. Below, Mara exhaled sharply. Pain spiked. Brighter this time, less clean. Messier. Her body flagged it immediately. Multiple stress points. Decreasing efficiency. So it adjusted again. Her breathing changed first. Shorter, controlled. Not for endurance. For timing. She pushed up from the ground, not using her injured arm, not even trying. It hung slightly closer to her torso now. Protected? Ignored? The Virexian circled. Slower. Careful. Why isn't it finishing her? One cadet asked. Another answered quietly. Because it doesn't understand what it's looking at. That was the problem. In every previous match, damage led to decline. Decline led to patterns. Patterns led to victory. But Mara had skipped a step. There was no clear decline. Only change. She moved again. Different from before. Again. Not refining a technique. Replacing it. Her stance narrowed. Footwork tightened further. She stopped extending into attacks entirely. Every motion became local. Contained. Efficient. She's reducing variables, Halvin murmured. The assistant frowned. That will limit her options. Yes, Halvin said, and remove ours. Down below, the Virexian lunged. Faster than before. Commitment this time. Full extension. End it now. Mara didn't retreat. She stepped offline, a minimal shift, barely visible. The strike passed her. Not missed. Misplaced. And for a fraction of a second, the Virexian overextended. Mara moved. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Her uninjured side drove forward. Short range, precise, impact. Not strong enough to end the match, but not meant to. The Virexian stumbled. Just one step. But it was enough. Silence filled the arena, because something had just become clear. She's not trying to win, a cadet whispered. No, she wasn't. Winning required optimal conditions. Strength, balance, full capability. Mara had none of those, so her brain chose a different objective. Continue, at any cost, with any method, and that made her unpredictable. In the observation booth, Halvin leaned forward slightly. This is why they're classified as adaptive risk species, he said quietly. The assistant swallowed. This isn't training doctrine. No, Halvin agreed. This is what happens when doctrine breaks. Back in the arena, Mara adjusted her stance again. Smaller, sharper, still solving. still changing. The Virexian didn't attack immediately this time. For the first time, it waited. And that hesitation? That was new. Mara noticed, not consciously, but it registered, stored, used. She stepped forward, not because she had the advantage, but because she had found something better. A system that didn't need one. No one spoke anymore. Even the cadets who had been quietly analyzing, calculating probabilities, predicting outcomes, stopped. Because prediction required stability, and there was none left. Mara moved, again, not faster, not stronger. Just cleaner. Every unnecessary motion had been stripped away. Every risky extension removed. Every reliance on her injured arm gone. What remained wasn't a fighting style, it was a solution. The Virexians saw it now. Not fully, not correctly, but enough. It did an attack. That, more than anything, shifted the atmosphere. "Why is it waiting?" someone whispered. "It has the advantage. It should finish this." But it didn't. Because instinct was colliding with something it had no framework for. Injury meant weakness. Weakness meant opportunity. But Mara wasn't behaving like weakened prey. She was behaving like a system that had redefined its own rules mid-conflict. Down in the arena, she took one step forward. Measured, balanced. Her injured arm remained still, almost forgotten. Her breathing steady. Short, timed. She wasn't ignoring the pain. She had simply deprioritized it. In the observation booth, the assistant finally spoke again. Her stress indicators are exceeding safe thresholds. Halvin didn't look away. "I know. We should stop this." A pause. "If we stop it now," Halvin said quietly, "we learn nothing." Below, the Virexian made a decision. It attacked. Not cautiously this time, not probing. Fully. A sequence of strikes, fast, layered, overlapping, designed to overwhelm, to force error, to break structure. Against any standard opponent, it would have worked. Against Mara, the first strike came. She didn't block. She shifted. The second, she didn't counter. She removed herself from where the outcome mattered. The third, closest yet. Too close. Impact. Her balance broke. She dropped, one knee hitting the ground hard. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the arena. This is it. End of match. But Mara didn't look up. She exhaled. Not in frustration, not in panic, in calculation. Her brain processed faster than her body could follow. Mapping damage, filtering options, discarding anything that required stability she no longer had. Rebuilding. Again. The Virexian stepped in. To finish it. It raised its limb. Angle perfect. Distance optimal. Mara moved. Not up, sideways, a small shift. Barely enough. The strike passed where she had been, and in that moment, for the first time, the Virexian overcommitted. Not physically, mentally, because it expected the situation to end. Mara didn't. She never had. Her remaining strength drove one final movement. Short, direct, precise, impact. The Virexian froze, not from damage, from interruption, from something breaking in its understanding of how this fight was supposed to work. Silence, then it stepped back. Just one step. But that was enough, because everyone saw it. "That's retreat," someone said. Not defeat, not yet, but something close. In the observation booth, Halvin slowly straightened. "There it is." The assistant's voice was quieter now. "She didn't overpower it." "No," Halvin said. He watched Mara take another small step forward, still unsteady, still injured, still adapting. She made the concept of winning irrelevant. Below, the Virexian didn't attack again. It couldn't, because it no longer understood the rules of engagement. And without rules, there was no clear path to victory. Mara stood there, breathing controlled, movements minimal, not chasing, not pressing, just continuing. The system held, for now. And in that moment, the match had already been decided. Not by strength, not by speed, but by something far more unsettling. A mind that refused to stop solving. The arena didn't reset, it didn't need to. No signal had been given, no command issued, but something fundamental had already shifted. Mara stood in the center of the ring, her posture no longer resembling anything taught at the academy. It wasn't a stance, it wasn't even symmetrical. Her weight distribution had changed 3 times in the last 20 seconds alone. Not randomly, never randomly. Her right leg now carried slightly more load, not because it was stronger, but because it allowed faster micro-adjustments in lateral movement. Her left shoulder dipped just enough to compensate for the arm she no longer used. Her injured forearm remained close to her torso, not rigid, but excluded. It wasn't being protected, it had been removed from the equation. Up in the observation booth, the assistant brought up a layered diagnostic overlay. Muscle compensation exceeding standard thresholds, they said, voice quieter now. Joint stress redistribution. Unstable. She's creating cascading strain points. Halvin didn't interrupt. Her motor patterns are fragmenting, the assistant continued. She's no longer operating within any recognized combat framework. A pause. She shouldn't be able to maintain this. Below, Mara inhaled slowly through her nose. Held it. Released. Her breathing pattern had changed again. Earlier it had been short and rhythmic, used to synchronize motion. Now it was spaced, measured. Not for timing, for clarity. Pain had evolved. It was no longer sharp and isolated. Now it spread. Diffuse, layered, overlapping signals that threatened to blur into noise. That was dangerous. Because noise couldn't be categorized, and anything that couldn't be categorized couldn't be optimized. So her brain did what it always did. It filtered. Not by removing pain. That wasn't possible, but by assigning it priority. Critical signals remained, structural warnings, balance shifts, load failures, everything else. Background. The Virexian watched. Still, its posture hadn't relaxed. If anything, it had become more rigid, because it was no longer reacting to a physical threat. It was trying to solve a cognitive one. Every model it had relied on, every predictive structure, had failed. Injury should have simplified the fight. Instead, it had erased its logic. Down in the arena, Mara moved first. A small step, not forward, not backward, diagonal. The shortest path that forced a decision. The Virexian reacted instantly. It had to. A probing strike, fast, controlled, designed not to commit. Mara didn't engage it directly. She shifted just outside its effective line, but not far enough to disengage. That was new. Previously, she had minimized interaction to reduce risk. Now, she was controlling it, not dominating. Constraining. Each movement she made reduced the number of viable options her opponent had. Not through force, through positioning. Another exchange. Faster now. The Virexian attempted a multi-angle sequence, forcing vertical displacement, then lateral correction. Mara allowed the first vector. That was the key. She didn't resist it. She accepted partial failure to avoid total collapse. Her balance broke again, but less this time. Her body adapted mid-motion. Micro-corrections, foot placement shifting under load, core tightening just enough to prevent full destabilization. Her injured arm twitched. Reflex. Then stopped. Removed again. Up in the observation booth, Halvin spoke quietly. She's no longer trying to maintain integrity. The assistant glanced at him. What? She's allowing controlled breakdowns. Below, Mara stepped again. Closer now. Too close for extended strikes. The Virexian hesitated. Again, because close range removed its advantage. But distance was no longer safe either. There was no optimal range anymore. Mara had eliminated it. Another movement, short, explosive. Her right side drove forward, not with full strength, but with perfect alignment, impact. The Virexian absorbed it, but not cleanly, because it had adjusted for a stronger strike. This wasn't that. It staggered, not from damage, from mismatch. Its expectations failed again, and that was cumulative. Mara didn't follow up, didn't press, didn't chase. She reset, not to a previous state, to a new one. Each exchange left something behind, discarded, replaced. She was becoming simpler, more efficient, less human, in the way the others understood it. Up above, one of the cadets finally spoke, voice low. "She's not fighting anymore." Another responded, "No." A pause. "She's iterating." Silence followed that, because they all understood what that meant. Iteration didn't aim for victory, it aimed for improvement, and improvement didn't stop. Down below, the Virexian made one final attempt. A full commitment. Everything it had left, channeled into a single decisive sequence. No hesitation, no probing, no adaptation, just execution. Mara saw it, not as a pattern, as a constraint. Something fixed, predictable. For the first time since the injury, something stable, and stability, was exploitable. She moved, not faster, earlier. She stepped inside the sequence, before it fully formed. Collapsed the structure before it could exist. The strike failed, not missed, invalidated. And in that moment, the Virexian stopped. Completely. Because there was nothing left to apply. No model, no prediction, no path. Just uncertainty. Mara stood in front of it, breathing controlled, body worn, structure imperfect, but functioning. Still functioning, still solving, still continuing. A sharp tone cut through the arena. End of match. The command came from above. Halvin. Not because she had won, but because the question had been answered. Medical teams moved immediately, fast, efficient, precise. Mara didn't resist, didn't speak. As they stabilized her arm, checked vitals, supported her balance. She simply let them, because the system had reached its threshold. Not failure, completion. Up in the observation booth, the assistant exhaled slowly. What do we classify this as? Halvin didn't answer right away. He watched as Mara was guided out of the arena, not carried. Walking, barely, but walking. Not resilience, he said finally. A pause. Not endurance. His gaze shifted back to the empty arena. This is baseline human problem-solving under constraint. The assistant was silent. Below, the arena reset, as if nothing had happened. But in the observation tiers, no one resumed speaking. Because they all understood one thing now. Injury did not reduce a human's capability. It changed the way that capability expressed itself, and that was far more difficult to fight.